Hey everyone, I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I'm sitting here drinking my Earl Grey and I am so ready to talk about my makeup usage update. So this year, since I backed off doing a lot of my project pans, I have been keeping track of my largest categories of makeup, well not all of them, but specifically blush, eyeshadow palettes, and eyeshadow singles to see what I naturally reach for. All the years past, the things that were most used for me were items that were in projects. This year, I wanted to just let myself be free a little bit and use what I wanted to in my collection, and I decided to keep track of those things so that I could just kind of see what it is that I actually use, to see maybe what kind of projects I need to do next year to make sure my makeup is getting used. So I have some stats for you guys. I love it when other people do these videos, so I hope you guys aren't too bored by this video. One thing I'm going to include at the end of this video that I haven't been up to this point is basically numbers in terms of the things I've been purchasing. How many palettes I've purchased this year, how many blushes, etc. It's kind of interesting. At least I think so. So let's start with blushes. So counting all my single blushes and then also palettes that include blushes, I have 60 items. Of those 60 items, I have used 59 of them now. So I'm actually not sure which blush I haven't used yet. I'll have to go through and check. But it makes sense that at this point of the year, I have cycled through most of my collection because I do tend to use makeup seasonally. So the beginning of the year, winter, spring, summer, and here we are at fall, and I'm using my fall shades again, which I do pretty well rotating through my blushes, even though I do usually have a focus blush going on in a project pan. I do like to rotate through all of them in my Shop My Stash. So I'm very happy to see that that is successful. My Shop My Stash is doing its job. I wasn't as pleased when I looked at the numbers to see how many times I actually used each blush, but you know, this is what happens when you have a big collection. So yeah, here we go. So the most used products that were not in projects, I have a tie for most used at 6 uses each. My Tower 28 Magic Hour blush, which is not a surprise because I love this blush so much. And I was very interested to see actually that the tie was this NARS palette. This is the Full Access Cheek palette. I gotta be honest, I think that when I was reaching for this palette a lot, yes, I did reach for the blushes, especially when I was initially testing it, but I think when I was reaching for it, I was reaching for the bronzer. But this palette is still getting reached for, so that makes me happy. 6 uses is still not a lot, but like I said, when you have a big collection, it takes a long time to get even up to 10 uses on things. So I'm very happy with how things are going with blush. But moving on to single shadows. This is, I think, the category where I am not doing the best. In this category, I'm counting any single shadow, whether it is a potted cream or an eyeshadow stick. Anything that's not in an eyeshadow palette, I count it as a single. So of those types of products, I have 181 of them. Of those, I've only used 52. So that tells me, and that's only about 28% of my collection. So maybe next year I will have to do some sort of a project to help me rotate through my singles collection. I just haven't been reaching for them as much this year. Part of that is because a lot of my singles are special shades, like they're just not something I would use every day, but I also just haven't even been reaching for my normal everyday shades that are in my single collection. So, you know, we'll see what I do next year. Just looking at my notes, I did declutter some cream eyeshadows this year. They had suddenly gone bad. I don't think I even put that on film. I went to reach for it and they were bad, so I just threw them out. So with the combination of having to declutter things that had gone bad, and then just seeing that I haven't been reaching for as many this year, I've actually been pretty good about not buying as many singles this year. I have purchased one here or there, but not as many as years past. So I'm actually doing pretty good in terms of purchasing. I will get to purchasing at the end of the video. But as far as the ones that I've used most often, I have a 3-way tie. All of these have been used 4 times. First up, I have Sydney Grace Peace. These I will swatch for you just because they make me so happy. Sydney Grace Peace, Maybelline Nude Glow, which looks like a dot, and then Moira Jupiter, the very beautiful sparkly cream shadow. So those so far, you know, only 4 times each. Not that impressive, but that's the point of me cataloging all my uses so that I can see these stats and see how I can do better. Okay, so moving on to palettes, I have 47 palettes, and I am including like this type of product from Natasha Denona that has eyeshadows in it as one of my eyeshadow palettes. So of those 47, I have used 31. So that is 65% of my eyeshadow collection. I am doing my best to just let myself reach for whatever that I want to use. So I am going to be interested to see if there's anything unused by the end of the year. So again, not counting palettes in projects, the most used palette for me this year so far has been the Lorac Noir palette, which I think I actually got most of the uses on this palette early on this year, because lately I've been using the Pat McGrath Subliminal palette. But anyway, so far this year I have 6 uses on this palette, which is not that much again. But honestly, keeping track of my palettes and how often I reach for them, how much use they're getting, has helped me slow down in purchasing palettes. I went through all of the things I purchased this year, and so far I have purchased 7 palettes, one of which I gave away. So 6 new palettes into my collection so far. I think I'm doing pretty good. In terms of that. I do like to try new things, even though it's taking me a long time to rotate through my eyeshadow collection. I feel like I'm doing okay. Okay, so let's talk about empties. So far, at the end of Q3 here, I'm up to 25 empties for the year. That's an average of 2 to 3 makeup empties per month, which is not that impressive, but I'm trying not to compare myself to others. I love to watch, say, Steph from her channel is just Steph. She goes through an insane amount of makeup. I don't know how she does it. But anyway, that seems to be my average, and it has been for the past few years. 2 to 3 makeup empties per month. Now, if we compare that to what I've purchased this year, so far I've purchased 73 individual items. So I kind of like have my little notes written down here. Let me read what I wrote down. So of those 73 individual items, that includes any makeup that came in subscription boxes, any minis, any single eyeshadow, each one counts as an individual product. That also includes products that I specifically purchased because I wanted to review them, so I didn't discount those. So that's an average of 8 items per month coming into my collection, which that is a lot. But at the same time, looking at myself previously, I have slowed down in items coming into my collection just because I no longer get Ipsy or Birchbox or Allure Beauty Box or BoxyCharm. Like, those are all things I used to get. So I've definitely slowed down in bringing things into my collection. And the things that I'm bringing in now, it's much more intentional. They're things that I actually want. Now, if I was doing a beauty bank, which I would be at a -13 for the year. So if you're unacquainted with a beauty bank, it's where you give yourself a number of points at the beginning of the year. You give yourself a point when you use up something and take away a point when you buy something. So I would be at negative, which I knew, but it's actually not as bad as I thought. -13. Now, to be noted, I have been doing a lot of decluttering. I haven't been showing all of it here on my channel. Sometimes I just feel like I'm done with something and I want to give it to someone, but especially I've been doing a lot of decluttering when I first buy something. So even though I've purchased 73 individual items this year, that's not all in my collection. A lot of times I'll buy something, use it 1 or 2 times, and I'll be like, oh, it's not for me, and I'll find someone to give it to. But I am counting them since I did buy them. Next year, in specific categories, I think I'm gonna have to do some purchasing rules for myself. I haven't quite figured that out yet. This particular year, I didn't do a beauty bank just because I was kind of trusting myself not to go wild in a lot of categories, and I honestly have. I mean, looking at that number 73, it's a lot, but breaking it down like I'm going to be doing here, you'll see that it actually, in most categories, was not that many things. So breaking it down for this year, lip products. This is where I have purchased the most number of things, which is very typical for me. And I'm including everything in here from lipsticks to glosses to lip balms. I purchased 19 this year, and I know several of those I instantly gave away. So those are all not in my collection. This year, I've also purchased 1 eyeshadow primer, 2 eyebrow products, 15 blushes, which I do have a lot of blush, but that is a category I love to make content about on my channel, so I kind of allow myself to buy blush. So 15 blushes. I purchased 6 eyeshadow singles this year, which again is a huge improvement. In years past, whenever there was like a Sydney Gray sale or something, I would go wild buying a lot of eyeshadow singles. So the fact that I've only purchased 6 this year is really, really good. I'm doing a lot better with that, I think. Oh, a category that's new to my collection, I purchased 5 face palettes so far this year, which previously I didn't care about face palettes, and all of a sudden I do. I think they're beautiful. So I purchased 5. This year I have purchased 4 highlighters, 2 bronzers, 5 mascaras, 1 eyeliner, 7 eyeshadow palettes, 4 foundations, one of which was not the right shade, so I immediately gave it away. So I only have 3 new foundations in my collection, which is actually 1 more than I want, because I would rather just bring in 2 new foundations a year, since it takes me a year to use up 2 foundations. But anyway, That's how many I purchased. And I've also purchased 2 primers this year, 1 concealer, and 1 face spray. So going through those numbers, you see in most categories, it was only a few things, but the numbers really add up, especially when I count the lip products and the blushes. Those are like definitely my weak points this year. But of course, the year is not over. We still have 3 months and we are coming up on the most intense shopping season, at least for me personally. Just because this is when things go on sale, and for me that is a shopping trigger. But I gotta be honest, I feel like this year I have been very successful in talking myself out of things. Yes, I've been purchasing things, but just not like in years previous. So I'm not really nervous for the upcoming shopping season. I do have 1 or 2 things I have my eye on. I have an eyeshadow palette I want from Sydney Grace. We'll see if that goes on sale as one of their new ones. And I honestly have a lot of other things on my wish list, but I'm waiting myself to empty out other products before I let myself buy them. So they'll still be there. The only time I sort of get like, oh, I need to buy it now is when it's something limited edition. And most of the time I can still talk myself out of it. So I have found as long as I don't go instantly buy it, if I give myself some time, I can talk myself out of things. Of course, I'm not always successful, but if I purchased everything I wanted, that would be absolutely insane. So here at the end of the video, how do I think I'm doing this year? I'm doing, I think, really good in rotating through my blush collection, okay with my eyeshadow palettes, not so great with my eyeshadow singles, and I could do to cool it a bit with the purchasing. Anyway, if you were doing a similar project like this, how are you doing this year? Here in fall, have you managed to rotate through most of your collection by this point of the year? Or like me, are you still getting through all your stuff? Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys supporting my channel. I will see you again very soon in the next video. Bye!